Hi guys, Mark here. Today we're gonna learn how to move off in a car with a manual gearbox. We have two objectives. One, to move off nice and smoothly without stalling the car or without causing a wheel spin. So how to do that? Well, it's quite simple, and you probably heard it before and people were telling you how to do this. You basically gently press the gas and slowly release the clutch. But it's only that simple if you have a good feel of the clutch and good feel of the gas. And you won't get that until you have loads and loads and loads of experience. So to get to that point, you need to learn how to move off consciously. And that's a lot more difficult because you need to know how to do this. And you need to understand what's going on, what's the processes behind it. So what do? You press the clutch all the way down, select first gear, you set the gas, so you gently press the gas so that RPMs get between 1.5 and 2,000, and you start to bring the clutch up. Initially, nothing will happen, but at some point, once you get high enough with the clutch, you'll feel the car starts to pull forward. And this is a very important moment when moving off. It's called the biting point. And what you need to do with the clutch at that moment is to hold it steady at that point. And this is very important because this was one of the most common mistakes people do when they learn how to drive. They start to press the gas, they slowly lift off the clutch, but once they feel the car starts to go, boom, they let go of the clutch completely and the car stalls. So the most important part is holding that clutch and the biting point. So first of all, you need to understand that in a car with a manual gearbox, when it comes to drive, you control two things. First of all, you control the engine. Second of all, you control the connection between the engine and the wheels. So the engine is pretty straightforward. Most of you will have some experience of riding a bicycle. And basically that's what the engine does. Instead of you pedaling, it's the engine that pedals. How fast the engine pedals and how fast it turns the drive shaft, we measure in revolutions per minute. It's called RPM for short. Most modern cars will have a RPM meter on the dashboard. And once you start the engine, you immediately will notice that the RPM shoots up to about 800 or 900 RPMs. And that's what we call idling. So that's the minimum amount of revs that the engine can have. So with accelerator, you control the rate at which engine spins the drive shaft. So basically, you control how fast the engine is pedaling. By adding gas, you'll see the revs starts to increase. Once you let go of the gas completely, they'll drop back to the minimum amount. And that's all you need to know about the engine, really, to start with. What is slightly more complex and also more important when learning how to move off is the connection between the engine and the wheels. So initially, when you start the engine is spinning, but the car is still stationary, nothing happens. And that's because there's no connection between the engine and the wheels. So you control that connection through gears and clutch. Gears are basically similar to gears in a bike, so they just connect the transfer ratio of spin of the engine to spin of the wheels. At the moment, not really that important for us. All you need to know that to move off, you should select first gear in most cars. Unless you're learning how to drive a lorry or any other big engine vehicle, for which first gear may be too strong. But yeah, 99% of the cars, you want first gear to move off. The clutch is basically metal discs, metal plates that transfer the drive from the engine to the wheels. There's a link in the description of this video to a very nice video about the clutch and the gears and how they actually work. So you have one plate that's connected to the engine, one disc that's connected to the engine, and as long as the engine is spinning, as long as the engine is working, that disc is constantly turning. And you have the other disc that's connected to the wheels. And when the gear is not engaged and the car is stationary, obviously that disc doesn't spin because the wheels don't spin. And once you're in gear and start to bring the clutch up, those discs start to get closer and closer and closer to each other. But because they're not touching, initially nothing is happening with the clutch. So that's the free play at the beginning of the clutch. Depending on your car, it may be at the very beginning or maybe halfway up the clutch that the discs actually start to touch each other. And that's the biting point. When the spinning disc starts to gently rub against the disc that's not spinning. And then once it starts to do that, through friction, it starts to speed up the second disc. And that one is connected to the wheels, and the car slowly starts to move off. You really need to remember about holding the clutch in the biting point when it starts to do that. Later, with practice, you may start to play with slowly letting go the clutch a little bit higher. And that's how you're gonna learn how to move off fast. But we'll cover that in a future episode. For now, just hold the clutch in the biting point until the car gets to some reasonable speed, usually about 5, 6, 7 miles an hour, so about 10 kilometers an hour. And once it gets to that speed, you can fully release the clutch, and then the plates stick very strongly to each other, and there's full connection. So whatever is happening with the engine is happening with the wheels. So then, if you add gas, the car will go faster. If you let go of the gas, the engine will slow down, the wheels will slow down as well. So that's pretty much all you need to know about moving off, and that's the very basics of it. In a future episode, we'll try to learn how to move off quicker, but that's a little bit more difficult. If you have any questions, just write them in the comments below. If you like the video, consider hitting the like button, and maybe hit a subscribe.